I'd like to talk a little about trust, because it seems certainly that the theme of our readings today is trusting in the Lord. And you've probably heard the story before about the man who was running along a cliff and suddenly he falls. And as he falls, unbeknownst to anyone watching, he grabs onto a branch. And so he's holding onto the branch, not seeing what's below because he's afraid to look down. If he had looked down, he would realize that there was a ledge just below him, but he didn't see that. So he starts praying loudly to God. God, help me. God, help me. Then he hears from above a voice saying, let go. And the man says, is there anybody else up there? Because he didn't trust in God. It could have just been a person looking down saying, who would have said there's a ledge like a foot below you. But he didn't trust, and so he was asking for someone else to give him advice, someone else to help him. And how often we might do that in our prayers when we pray. It's a good thing, though, when we say to someone else, would you pray for me? Or would you pray with me? Because that's what we're called to do. We hear in the readings, Israel leaves his land. Jacob was his name, and he goes to a foreign land. He went because he trusted in the Lord. But even still, there was a little bit of doubt. And yet, because of his trust, he was given the gift of seeing his son again, his son Joseph, who he thought was killed, had been put to death, had been left in the desert. In the reading, we hear Jesus telling the apostles to trust. Just last week, I was in California to celebrate a wedding, and it was in the Salinas Valley, which is where Highway 101 is, and it's called El Camino Real, or the Royal Road, the King's Road, the King's Highway. And all along El Camino Real are these mission bells, and it was the highway of the king because it was the highway that Junipero Serra traversed going from Mexico up north. You'll hear in September more about Junipero Serra, if you haven't heard more about him yet, because in September when Pope Francis is here, he's going to canonize Junipero Serra, a saint. He's already blessed Junipero. And the history of California is entwined with the history of our faith, because Junipero Serra was a Franciscan who left his native Spain, Mallorca, where he was born, and he came to the New World. And he started a number of missions going up the coast of California, starting in the south in San Diego with San Diego de Alcalá, and going north, continuing north. Even the city of Los Angeles is named after a mission, Our Lady of the Angels. San Francisco is named for St. Francis, and many of the other names of towns and places in California. I visited the mission of San Miguel. That's why I mentioned it earlier, I think. And there attended Mass on Sunday. On that same day, I went to the mission of San Antonio, who for us is Portuguese. Well, he is. He was born in Lisbon, in Portugal. He died in Padua, and so we kind of gave him up. Let the Italians have him, but in our hearts, he's always Portuguese. But it was certainly because of Junipero Serra's trust that these places continue as places of worship from the 1700s until today. There was a time that they were in disarray, but the people trusted that people would come back, the faithful would come back. And so it is. The churches were full because of that faith that was planted years ago by Junipero Serra. We need to trust in the Lord because he's given us the gift of faith in our hearts, in our lives. We need to trust that he will continue to help us bring it forth. But we also have to be like the apostles, not being afraid to speak faith, not being afraid to speak Jesus Christ wherever we are and whatever we do, to whomever we speak, trusting that the Lord will continue to nurture that faith in the other person as he continues to nurture it in us.